Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's not only gentlemen who joined us today, but I am excited to be part of this conversation today. My name is Khalifa Khalid, and I'm a hospital psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group. And we are excited to hold this year's Man Cave. We do this annually, and I will tell you a little bit about Man Cave. It's something that we have always done it, and traditionally it has been just men who have been part of this conversation. But now it's this year is open to everyone. So hopefully anyone can join where they are, regardless of the gender. All right, and we're here to impact as many people as possible through this conversation. So we hope it's going to be as exciting as I think it will be. And Chiromo Hospital Group is a fully, level 5, fully equipped psychiatric facility. And right now we have like 5 branches in Nairobi, actually 6, because we've just opened an outpatient facility in Upper Hill. And 2 are in Westlands, the original Westlands branch, and 1 along Withithi Road. And then 2 are in Lavington. The Bustani, which is a 105-bed capacity. It's quite a complex. And also we have 1 in Braeside Gardens. As I've mentioned, is a fully equipped level 5 psychiatric facility, both inpatient, outpatient. And what is a psychiatric facility? I know most of you just look at it from the aspect of, us keeping wendawazimus. Absolutely not. It is very modern, and we have different approaches that we use in treatment and management of mental health disorders. And mental health disorders ranges from depression, substance use disorders, ADHD, anxiety, schizophrenia, any mental health condition that you can ever think of. So we have a multifaceted approach that we normally use, especially when it comes to treatment. Therapy, we have different types of therapy: group therapy, art therapy, occupational therapy. We try as much as possible to make our patients get the best care as they can as they recover and get back to their normal lives. And I will just introduce the Tufunguke campaign. It's as you can see down there. There's a hashtag Tufunguke. Tufunguke basically means let's open up, tuonge. And it is an initiative that was launched by Her Excellency, the former First Lady, Honorable Margaret Kenyatta, that seeks to purposefully challenge and destigmatize mental health by encouraging all to open up, people to discuss about these issues, regardless of the context, and to share their stories and seek help without the fear of being judged or looked differently. So today we're going to have this conversation openly, and we're going to tell each other it's fine, it's okay for us to go through this. There's so many people going through, so it will amplify a lot of issues that so many people will want to talk about, but maybe they don't have the right avenues to express their own feelings about it. So today it's going to be that day. Yeah, and I'm going to introduce our stellar panel. Yeah, and these are people with very, I can tell because I've interacted with them shortly. They have very impeccable personalities. And I will start off with Patrick Nyagudi. He's one of the hospital psychologists in Chiromo Hospital Group, but based in Nyali. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention, by the way, we have a branch in Nyali. And Patrick
I was wondering where Nyali is.
so coastal people, Watu wa Mombasa, there's a branch for you in Nyali on Mount Kenya Road. Yeah, it's also an inpatient and outpatient facility, fully equipped psychiatric hospital. So you can get the help that you need. Yeah, so don't hesitate to reach out to our Nyali team. So Patrick is representing the Nyali team today, and he believes that for one to be effective and productive in the day-to-day activities, one has to be healthy, physical, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, socially, and financially stable, right? And he holds diploma in clinical pastoral education, a BA in counseling psychology from the Kenyatta University, and also he's currently pursuing his master's in counseling psychology at Kenyatta University. So welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Khalifa.
And our next panel is Reverend Alfred Appella. I hope I've pronounced your name very well. He is a youth and young adult head of department and at the cathedral staff, and also a cathedral staff chaplain. Sorry, at the All Saints Cathedral. Am I right? So thank you so much, Reverend Alfred
Yes, you're
Appella, for
very
joining us
correct.
today. Okay, thank you. So next in line is Dr. Kibaso Raymond. He is a medical doctor, a human anatomist, and a neurosurgery resident at the Kenyatta National Hospital.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daktari, and we are very, very happy to have you as part of the chat of the panel. And also, Reverend Alfred Appella and Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. We have one more panelist who has not joined us yet, but hopefully he'll join us later, Ramsky Duevela. So hopefully we'll have him on board. But I will get into the introduction of this year's theme of the man cave. And the theme, oh, he's actually here. Hello, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. I was wondering if you are speaking to me.
We didn't see you. I did not see you, so I thought maybe you hadn't joined.
Nah, it's okay. I'm here.
Okay, very good. Is it possible so that you can also put on your video? We can see you.
It will be challenging because of where I am.
Oh, that's fine. That is okay. So Ramsky Dovela Karibu Sana, he's
Thank
a
you.
professional photographer and an epilepsy advocate. And his passion lies in promoting mental wellness among people with epilepsy and shedding light on various aspects of their lives. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing. And the reason behind his dedication stems from the fact that he was born with the condition itself. And we will very, very happy to hear also from his experience and how he's managed this condition throughout the years. And it's so strong of him to also be part of this conversation today. And he uses photography as a tool for advocacy, yeah. And through the lens, he captures not only the beauty of life, but also the resilience and strength of individuals facing epilepsy. And he believes visual storytelling has the power to challenge misconception and false understanding. And I think that's a very, very strong cause. And thank you so much, Ramsky Duevela, for joining us
Thank
today
you.
this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll get into the main business of today, which is basically this conversation. And I'm going to introduce the theme, which is basically healthy habits. And we are going to look at healthy habits and what it means from different aspects and from different perspectives, of course. And also, we're also going to focus on encouraging men and young boys and boys in general to build healthy habits by identifying small changes they can make that benefit their health and well. So basically, today we're going to strive big healthy habits and see how that can help us also within our daily lives. But the most important thing today is we're going to discuss. And the first question that I'm going to ask to the panel today, and I'm going to first pick Patrick Nyagudi. Maybe you can respond to this. What does masculinity mean to you? You being a psychologist, you being a man, you being probably a family person, how does that relate to you and what do you think about it?
Okay, thank you, Khalid, for that question. I will answer it in just one statement. Then we see from this statement what I mean. So, masculinity for me means what the society expects of me as a man. As simple as that, what the society expects of me as a man. Now, there are roles that I do have as a man, which the society constructs. The society says that as a man, you're supposed to provide. As a man, you're supposed to protect. As a man, you're supposed to be a role model. as a man, as a man, as a man. So as I look at Mchungaji Alfred, let's go biblical a bit. There are those tasks that a man is given. Now, when we come back to social science, I'm also a gender student. I was a gender student at Kenyatta University. So we are being told that gender, now we need to differentiate between gender and sex. In terms of gender, I'm either a man or a woman. Sex is I'm either male or female. So when we are talking about masculinity, I'm just looking at it from the social expectations that is put on me as a man. Thank you, Khalid. Maybe we hear from Khalid, a psychologist too.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. So basically, it's a social perspective of you being a man and what the society also expects of you to be like being like a man, and the roles that also are defined being just around being a man. But thank you so much, Patrick, for putting that into perspective. Maybe I can get some insight from Reverend Alfred Appella, what he thinks about masculinity, and maybe he can be able to shed some light also from the spiritual perspective and also from an individual perspective.
Well, thank you very much, Khalifa, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be among you and just to talk about this. Patrick has outlined it very well. It's there because there are social expectations that are expected of a man. But I also want to bring in another perspective. I picked up a book of a certain writer some time back, and he defined masculinity as being the man that God intended you to be. Now, when you look at manhood from a biblical perspective, there are those responsibilities and roles that Patrick talked about that are expected of a man. Truth be told, in our society today, we have got these perceptions about masculinity that have been shaped by social media, shaped by the movies that are people watching, shaped by worldviews on what masculinity is all about. But going back now to from where I sit as a spiritual leader, God created man and gave him responsibilities and gave him expectations for him to function, and that shapes up his masculinity. So there are basic tenets that actually guide masculinity that Patrick has talked about: providing for family, protecting, being a visionary. So many of these concepts that ride into masculinity. But on a basic scale, even as the society, as men strive to meet expectations in the society, it is important for them to know that they have a source in God that they need to really get to understand their functions as men from. In a brief way, that's what I may mention for now. Thank you.
So much, Reverend Alfred. I'm pretty sure you're going to learn more about just also this spiritual impact, also on just us getting to know ourselves better as men and boys. So thank you for just that statement, and we really, really do appreciate that. Next is Dr. Kepaso Raymond. What do you think about masculinity? What does it mean to you?
So as my fellow panelists have actually highlighted, it's a social convention that is defined by the people around us, the communities around us, and the society at large. So it's a two-way sword. It might be a burden. It can be looked at as a burden, like as a disadvantage, or it could be a privilege. It is an opportunity, because now it means that the society trusts that we are able to fulfill those definitions that they have cast upon us. So as Reverend has said, those are responsibilities that God gave us. And maybe or my 2 cents will be that this definition by society of what a man should be usually evolves over time. It is refined, and other responsibilities are added while others are subtracted. So usually, most often than not, we take that as a privilege and an opportunity for us to serve the communities around us. But every once in a while, there is usually a burden attached to that responsibility. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Kebaso. That was very, very, very powerful. And maybe also maybe we can hear from Ramsky.
Yeah,
Maybe give us your perspective of what masculinity means to you.
actually, everything everyone has said they agree with, because I feel like I'll just be repeating what they've said. I'm glad also Pastor has explained it from, a religious point of view, or to be precise, a Christian's point of view. We have even like everyone here. So masculinity, yes, to me, it's a social expectation of what it is to be a man, behavior, your roles, and so many others that I cannot, go one by one. However, this is on a side note. Uh, it might be different depending where you come from, because when you see what is happening in the States and all that, the gender has become, a social construct, blah, blah, blah. Here at home, here, like by at home, I mean in Africa. In Africa, manhood is attributed to certain physical attributes, behaviors and everything. So also the region where you're from, the environment where you're from, can have a way of swaying the definition of what it is to be masculine. But from my point of view, like everyone has said, goes down to the social expectation.
Thank you. I think that also that's a very important point to note. Also the role of the environment that also instill this belief system within us. And I think those are the things that drives us to even get to understand who exactly am I. And yes, I think from also what I'm getting from everyone is that it's mostly just the perspective of what the society and the expectation of it, of how it has on us as men. But I think also masculinity, from also what most of you have mentioned, is also an objective thing that you see yourself as. I think also comparing with what the society sees you as. So how do you see yourself as a man? Also, it's very important to note. Yeah. Because that also is going to help you understand what masculinity really means. Maybe I need to ask this question to Reverend Alfred Apella and Dr. Siayo, but in no particular order, anyone can answer this. And in a world where accomplishment and comparison is used to define or grade a man's masculinity, how can a man work to be the best version of themselves? So this, maybe Dr. Kebaso, you can start first, or Reverend, whoever is ready.
But Daktari can go first.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Khalifa, for that opportunity. So when I think about the best version of myself, what is perhaps the highlight of that concept is that I am the one defining my best version. So because there are so many of us in the world right now, approximately 8 billion, and there's so much space for us in this world and elsewhere. So when we want to see how can we find the best version of ourselves, the first step probably will be to define who we want to be. And once we define that concept, we can always refine it over time. And agreeable, as you have said earlier, that masculinity is a social construct, and there are a lot of expectations that have been placed on us. Even more so, there's a lot of because of how we were trained from kindergarten to primary school, where only a few people were taken to best schools. The top students were given other opportunities. There's some element of we developed some element of competition. And as a biologist, the concept of competition is not unique to humans. Even if you put bacteria in a bottle, two species of bacteria, the one will try to outcompete the other. So really, we are not blaming the character, the human behavior, the nature of humans to compete. It's just that but now, whereas healthy competition is good because it brings about innovation and better solutions, it ends up giving undue pressure to individuals, because now they have to be the best in the environment in which to defeat everyone. But perhaps what this meeting will probably highlight is that despite that intrinsic nature to compete, the intrinsic nature to outdo everyone, society also gives us an opportunity to define what we want to succeed in. As you can see from the diversity in this panel, there are so many avenues for everyone to succeed in. And I probably will not have been a very good psychologist because of maybe my intrinsic demeanor. I'm very terrible in taking photos. And so there's always, because of we are so many, and there's so many, there's such a variety in the environment, so many things that one can do and excel at. And then God was kind to make sure we cannot excel at everything at the same time. So the best route maybe I'll start off by answering is that first is it's good for an individual to define his environment. And in fact, we are not alone in this who have pondered about this question. Other people have developed techniques of defining the environment. So, for example, in business, like I think in Chiromo Hospital Group, you must have had a SWOT analysis. You look at the strengths that you have, the weaknesses, and the environment, the threats and opportunities that you can do and where you can do well. So the first tool that we have is we can do a SWOT analysis of who we are, what are our strengths, what are the things we like doing. So instead of me trying to be Messi and being the best footballer, yet I probably do not know how to run, I can look at what are the things I can do well. Then those that I can do well, the innate abilities that God provided me with, and the ones that I've learned over time, I can now work the best version of myself with the person. I can try to sharpen and polish what my strengths are so that I can be the best version. And the advantage of that is that if everyone else becomes the best at what they do, the society becomes richer. For example, you'll get best musicians because they are talented in music. We have best doctors because they have the gift of healing, of treating patients, so that when the musician is unwell, he gets the best treatment from there. So I think the first part of becoming the best version of ourselves, and also of surviving in this competitive environment, is defining who we are and what we want to succeed in, knowing the environment in which we are in and the opportunities that we have. Then maybe another new concept that I will want to share is we can do nice Venn diagrams where we have circles of what the environment wants for us, what are the opportunities that we have and who we are. And then at the sweet spot where the assumptions collide at the sweet spot, then we can specialize in that. We can do that strongly. Then perhaps what is again relevant to our man cave discussions today, that we don't have to do this alone. We don't have to know the answer to this question of who we are and what our opportunities are. We can get help from specialists, from mentors, from counselors. In this case, if we are stuck, even from the church, from youth organizations, where we can, even from our teachers, so that we can assess who we are, what we can do best in, what are the best opportunities and that the society has given us. Then now from there, once we decide on what we want to be good at, then now we polish it again while seeking help and then now maybe to conclude, we should appreciate small wins. For example, if let me be Ramsey for a minute. If I start a photo channel and I have like 1,000 followers, maybe that will be a small win. I can celebrate, even if I'm aiming for 1 million. That is a small win. Then, because now that reward system reinforces our self-esteem and enables us to. Then we also thank, maybe because Reverend is here, we should also be full of thanks that every time we accomplish small accomplishments, we appreciate the little that we get so that we can get more. I think those will be my 2 cents in this matter.
Thank you, Dr. Kebaso. That was very, very powerful. I think you brought an aspect of just this holistic approach of self-awareness and how we can be able to learn more about ourselves and tap the things that we appreciate more, our strengths, and how we can be able to just maximize on those. So thank you so much on that. Reverend Alfred, please, maybe, can you also give us your few cents on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Daktari, for giving actually such such in depth of this question, because truth be told, we live in a world where accomplishments and comparison define men, and I can be very open to tell you that even myself, at some point when I was coming up in my calling as ministry, I would meet preachers who I thought were far much better than I am doing. And the easiest thing psychologically is to try and do it as they do it, because you admire what they do. And the best I could be is a photocopy, unfortunately. But when we begin to talk about this world that is full of comparisons, and a man where a man's masculinity is defined by accomplishments, allow me to fall back to the spiritual perspective of this, to bring in the aspect that God himself actually desires that a man, first of all, finds his purpose and fulfill it. Truth be told, as Dr. has mentioned, there are so many things we want to do in the world. There are so many things that surround us. You want to be in business, you want to be in this profession, you want to be a pilot, you want to be all these things. And men find themselves grappling with this challenge. What do I do? You meet a young boy in school and ask him, what do you want to be? In class 8, he'll tell you, hey, I want to be a doctor. By the time he gets to Form 3, he tells you, hey, I want to be an engineer. By the time he graduates from campus, he wants to study law. So there's all these things we are grappling with in terms of what we want to accomplish to display masculinity. But for me, the strength of masculinity lies on a spiritual plane, understanding why you exist on earth, or why God has placed you on earth. Dr. has mentioned something about doing a SWOT analysis, which I totally agree, because a SWOT analysis really helps you to identify the unique giftings that you have as a person, and that which God has ingrained in you, and that can help define where your calling is. A young man walked into my office some time back and he said, Rev, how can I know my reason for existence? And I told him that God will not send you to a farm without giving you the tools to work in that farm. What I actually meant was that it's good for you to look at the giftings within you and appreciate them as a man and work around them, and you see the uniqueness that they produce to you as an individual. Allow me to just give this example. Sorry to take much of your time, but allow me to give this example. Suppose Jesus came to earth and just became a priest because he had the opportunity to become a priest. You know, he would have done something good, but he still wouldn't have fulfilled his assignment. Same to if he would have decided to become a member of the Sadducees or a social worker. You know, he was helping the poor a lot. And so if he was helping the poor, he would have decided and said, hey, I can make a very good social worker here. Wow, I can multiply 5 loaves and 2 fish, and there are poor people around me, and feed them, you know. And that would have been a beautiful thing for Jesus to do. But because he knew his purpose and his assignment was so clear to him, he, at one point when Simon Peter was trying to dissuade him to go to the cross, to die on the cross, he looked at him and said, hey, get behind me, Satan. My real purpose really is to die for the sins of men and to resurrect and give them salvation. And so in as much as the many things he did was good and commendable and nice in the eyes of men, yet there is that one thing that he knew that he must do on earth. And so every man today, I believe, has that one thing in his mind. What is this one thing that I want to do as a man? Within my environment as a minister, I meet young people. They tell me, "Hey, I graduated with engineering. Now I'm doing accounts," or I graduated as a teacher. Now I'm a counselor. There's a young man I met. He graduated in civil engineering, but he enjoys hiking. Today he's opened up a company that is actually helping people to climb mountains and hiking and all that, and he enjoys that with his wife. So the question that really comes in is, what is your reason for existence? And the best way for us spiritual leaders, what we do, we encourage men to connect with their maker, because because your maker really has the manual of why you are born. He has the full manual on it. When Dr. talks about the SWOT analysis, I agree with him, because a SWOT really helps you to see the giftings, the right giftings that God has placed in you, and you can pray around them and ask God to help you cultivate these giftings for the benefit of humanity at large. One last thought. Sorry, preachers talk too much, but one last thought. One last thought here. We are caught up because of the competitive nature of how we live. Remember, from the time we've grown in school, primary, high school, campus, we have been wired to be competitive, wired to compete with others. And so and I remember when we were in class, when somebody seems to be much better than you, you seem to try to draw close to him and find out, what is this that he is doing? What is this that he is doing? But unfortunately, today, what people are doing right now is not to find out what he's doing, but to get the leakages, more Kenyans and all that, to try and be like that person. But if somebody would just decide, hey, let me be myself, let me appreciate myself as God has created me. I may not have as strengths as this person, but I am what I am. Then that will really bring a difference. A friend of mine has two sons. One of his sons is very good in academic work. This guy is good in books, so he's excelling. The other one is not good in academics, but he's very good in games. So he decides and he tells them, hey, you guys function. I will empower you based on how you can on these areas for maximum impact among men. But how would it be if we take this other person who is not academically empowered and begin to discriminate him based on that? It will give a challenge. So for us spiritual in church, we believe that God has a purpose for all of us. It's good to pray and ask God, why am I on earth? And he is good at actually helping you to do an evaluation and for you to be able to know why you are. He will show you your strengths. And after that, you work on your strengths. And as Dr. said, do a SWOT analysis, get your strengths, and you excel. And it will be amazing. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I think that was a cocktail of information, and I personally appreciate the fact that you brought this perspective of just spiritual introspection that we can also use as a way of getting to know ourselves and getting to know exactly what we're good at, and just also appreciating ourselves, because it's very, very important to appreciate yourself so that you can realize what else are you good at, or how can you be able to do more. So thank you so much, Reverend Alfred Apella, for that, and also Dr. Kibasu. Our next question is directed to Ramsky and Patrick.
Can I just maybe respond a bit to that?
Sure.
I have a different perspective, a little bit, but more similar to Gazi's.
Okay.
As men, we tend to be more, we want to compare ourselves to others because of the competitive nature, which is a time bomb. So in my opinion, for us to achieve the best version of ourselves, we just look at our 5 fingers. So in my 5 fingers, they are not the same. So in this panel, we are 5. We are very unique. So let us not compare ourselves to others, because the more you compare yourself to others, the high likelihood you're going to get frustrated. So I'm a psychologist, Khalifa is a psychologist. Our approaches are very different. I'm a chaplain, Mchungaji, you are a chaplain. Our approach, very different. So let us embrace the competitiveness, not the comparing ourselves one to another. A case in scenario, I might be driving a Mercedes-Benz today. Then because Khalifa wants to compare himself to me, he wants to get a Ferrari. He doesn't know where I've gotten all this money to buy my Benz. So let us just be content with what we have as men, which will in turn make us accomplish more, as compared to constantly putting ourselves on the edge of trying to catch up. The more we try to catch up, I will tell you for free, we are going to develop mental health problems. I think that is my contribution, Khalifa.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. And on that note, I'll get a Ferrari. So actually, it's going. Your statement, Patrick, is going to be very applicable in this question that I'm going to air out, and I'm directing it to you and Ramsky. How can we promote mental health literacy among men, ensuring they have the knowledge and tools to recognize and address their own mental health needs? So Ramsky, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, okay, sure. Now, before I start, I'll just take like 30 seconds to answer the first question and connect it into, the question that you just asked. For me, one of my favorite quotes is that a man without purpose is nothing. It is as simple as that. A man without purpose is nothing. And let me just bring it home, because in the spirit of being who we are, I'm very gifted photographer, and I'm very passionate about psychology. Like, though that is not my path. Now, I was struggling to make, to find my place in this earth. Any man that you reach a certain age and you start wondering, who am I? Who really am I? Forget about, you could be making money and everything, but there's just this nagging family feeling of what was I meant to do? Because you're making money, but there's this lack of fulfillment in you. And I'll never forget, there's one preacher who came and told me, and I almost punched him, quote unquote, because he told me something I didn't want to hear, but it was very important that I had. And he came and told me, young man, from what I see, from what God has told me, is that you are never called to be a photographer. You see, photography is just a tool that God gave you to usher you into your purpose. Now, the reason why that got me mad was for 2 reasons. Number one, I was at the climax of my career as a photographer. Money is coming. Number two, I was conflicted. I was in that transition of, I even told my mentor I no longer enjoy photography. So it was that bitter truth. Now, to bring it home, until one day I sat down and I was like, you know what? You have a story, because purpose is all about what you are meant to do, and purpose is what sets you aside from your peers. You see, what makes you different? Yes, you can be both having the 2 Ferraris, as it has been insinuated here, but what makes you different from the one with that other Ferrari? It's what you need to, think deep, because you don't know what the other person did to get that Ferrari. Does it mean that you have to go through the same path? You see, now, it was until I discovered my purpose, and that purpose is, the one, as you introduce myself, to inspire people through my story. And my point of inspiration, because I believe for you to be a good leader, you must have, quote unquote, a selfish agenda. What do I mean by a selfish agenda? Probably Pastor will not like that word for obvious reason. But to be a good leader, you must also have something that drives you from within. What is it that drives you as a person? And from me, it was about my confidence with epilepsy. I needed to be accepted. I needed all these things, the perception that people had towards epilepsy. I wanted that narrative to change, you see. And the moment I decided to tell my story from a point of walking in my purpose, that's when I started getting an audience. In my career as a photographer, I've not been given such a platform like this. You see, that gets to tell you something. Where what does the Bible say, mchungaji? Where God will make you dine with kings and rulers of the earth. Something. I'm just paraphrasing. And once I discovered my purpose, you find that I was given access to places that I could not even think of. So as a man, that is very important. Now, to answer your question, and I'll just put it in one, for you to be able to promote this conversation about mental health literacy and all that, first of all, there's a need to acknowledge that men are different from women. That's number one. And the idea of mental health communication and being vulnerable is different. The way men process emotion is very, very different from the way, women process emotion. And it is essential to acknowledge and accept these differences. You see, we need to create supportive environments that address our own mental health as men. The thing is that there's these ideas that are being peddled around that as a man, to be in touch with your emotion, you have to cry. You see, there's nothing wrong about when you cry and all that. Not that I'm saying there's something wrong with crying. However, we need also to acknowledge that we address our own issues differently, because I've tried to cry before, as they told me, you go to therapy and they tell you, feel free to cry, let it out. And personally, aggression is the only way that comes out. So what will I do? I'll go to the gym. I'll go. So you need to know how men communicate, how men process emotions. And the only way to do this is for us men to talk it out, have role models, you see, have such platforms like this. Because now, when you bring the equation of a man, because when you bring the women in the equation, because another struggle comes in when men start dating, when they have women in their life, and now you have someone who expects you to be a certain way. And you are forced, and this is now, it's hitting home, you are forced to put up a certain face, and they start accepting you for this facade you're putting up. And because you can only pretend to as much, you find that one day the mask falls off and you'll feel like you're not accepted for who you are. Yet, because you are never truly to who you are, you never spoke your truth, you never communicated about the way you feel and the way you like to be addressed, people made that decision for you. And now you are paying the price for it. So we need also to bring that conversation in the picture, and also encourage role models. Men, we don't have role models. There's less and less role models out there for men. Or if they are there, they are very hidden. I don't know what is it all about. But when you look at women, all they need to do is just inbox a random person, influential figure on Facebook. And these women are going to fight for these women, like whether they are wrong or right. These women are going to fight for them, and they are going, I'll volunteer to mentor her, I'll volunteer to do this. But when it comes to men, egos, it's all about titles. Mwanaume ni kuvumilia, mwanaume ni go through hii, and all that. So you find that at the end of the day, I'm like, it is very embarrassing to put my business out there. So until we create that environment where I feel safe to talk about this thing, I'm afraid this will be just one of those things. And I miss those days at the barber shop where we used to go. It was like a sanctuary for men. No women allowed and everything. Nowadays, with the introduction of women in the barber shops and all that massage and sexual innuendos that go on there, it has corrupted the sanctity of what it is. When you go to, earlier, when you used to go with your father first time to a barber shop, that was an initiation into a certain age of manhood, where conversation, about women in a proper way. But nowadays, those mentors that used to go to barbershop, wives are no longer comfortable to let their husbands to go that in such spaces. Mothers are not comfortable to let young men go to such spaces. Yet those were areas that men used to come and, have a conversation, laugh. and get wisdom from married people, from people that have made it, which that is no longer the case. So just to conclude, that's where I'm going to leave it, because I can get too passionate when talking about this. Maybe someone else can take it from there.
Oh, thank you so much, Ramsky, for that elaborate explanation. So maybe Patrick, what's your opinion on that?
I even don't know what to say after Ramsky has passionately spoke about it. But I will give 3 or 4 perspectives of how we can promote mental wellness amongst men. Number one, we need to have more forums like this that men just speak it out.
Okay.
And let me lean towards the church or religion a bit. Like in the Anglican Church, because I'm an Anglican, so I understand if we had these forums at the Karma level, whereby now the men sit and talk issues. And now when we are talking about men issues, maybe within the church space, Mchungaji, it's not praise the Lord every other day. We talk about real issues. We talk about, I'm struggling with depression. I'm struggling with my nagging wife. I struggle with maybe alcoholism. So that when this man comes to church or to this religious gathering, they know that they can freely talk. As Ramsky has said, the barbershop has now become another thing altogether. So let us not make the church also to be just another place whereby the man is being beaten. So having more man-friendly forums will be able to get us off the woods. Number 2, and this one I'll link it up with Dr. Raymond. Men have a very poor help-seeking behavior. For you to see a man go to hospital, jua kimemramba. So let's allow men to openly seek therapy. If we did a statistic today, most of our health facilities, especially mental wellness facilities, majority are men. Reason being, we don't talk about it. We keep it inside until someone else forces us to seek help. Now, down at the coast, we say, mwanaume ni kujikaza kisabuni. But they add another statement. Sabuni ukitia maji, itatoa povu. So ponder on that. The more you want to be well collected, the more unstable you become. So let us encourage men in our different forums to seek help. Thirdly, nowadays we have tools that will help us understand our mental wellness. Screening, again, I will still go back to the medical line. How many men will screen for maybe something like depression? How many men will screen for anxiety? Very few. Or you will screen, but you keep that information a secret. So let us openly screen and talk about the outcome of this screening, so that if there is an issue that needs attention, it's taken care of immediately before things go south. Statistically, men die by suicide more than women. That's a fact. Reason being, tumefika mwisho, we don't know where to vent it out. The only option that we have is to end it all. Yet, if I talk to Reverend Alfred that I'm struggling with this, that sharing alone is a way out. So my encouragement as a therapist is, let us seek help. Let us do screening, and it's okay to cry. I think Ramsky was like, We are not supposed to cry. I say this very confidently. Strong men do cry.
Let me interrupt.
Yes,
I have something to say about that.
yes,
I have some sorry to cut you because here's the thing. Let me just say it because I feel like I need to spice up this conversation a little bit because I feel like
sure.
we are talking about the same thing, the same information that we can get on social media right now. You can go to the internet. Let's talk about the realities on the ground. Number one, you've said something to do with the churches. Can we just take a minute and acknowledge that most of these churches nowadays perpetuate the very, very thing that we are trying to fight against? I'm not saying I'm a believer, born again believer. So let me just put it that out there. But there's this say that I say that it is in church that I met God, but it is also the same place that I learned how to judge. You see, the churches nowadays, they are no longer like they used to be. Like people, a lot of discrimination is happening. The churches are no longer as accommodative. I won't say it's ignorance, but I feel like something that you've said, we tend to focus on the spirituality, and we forget about the real things that are happening. But that's a topic for another day. Another thing that I need to say concerning the topic of crime, there's absolutely nothing crying, but also let's be careful not to raise a generation of quote unquote weak men in the name of trying to making men be in touch with themselves. And what do I mean by weak men? We also need to understand that we as Africans have our own cultures. You see, back then, why is it that Kitambo, during our great grandfathers, we never used to hear this story of suicide? And I'm not talking about, yes, conversations such as these were not, they were not frequent. But the truth of the matter is that even the data that is being used right now, they're the same data that they used to take back then. So what is it that people of the past used to do that the current generation, the supposedly woke up generation is not doing, hence the numbers that are going up? Number three, and everyone here who knows the psychologist, probably you know about Professor Jordan Peterson. He's one of my favorite people. And there's one thing he said, there's a research that says that women are interested in people, men are interested in things. So when it comes to processing these emotions, we also need to acknowledge that therapy doesn't always work. Or like what I mean by the traditional sense of going and seeing a doctor, a therapist, it will not work for everyone. And not to mention that it's very, very expensive. So we need to acknowledge these realities on the ground. Pastor, Reverend, you can attest because every church unaenda, it is there. There used to be times whereby crusades used to go even to the clubs. People were sent where the problem is. You see, asking people to come to church, nowadays the church has been made to feel like ni kama kwenda hospitali na wewe si mgonjwa. If the churches were meant for the righteous, then there will be no need for salvation. But now the fronting that is happening in the religious institution, not just the churches, is that it's not conscious, but it's like a conditioning that is happening where people feel like I have to be a certain way to go to the church. Yet back then in the days, they used to go. Kama ni kwa club. I know a friend of mine who met Jesus at the club. You see, because there was these outreach programs. People used to go where you are. Because for men, like you said, for men to be in a position where they acknowledge that this is a problem, there's a need to be a serious intervention. Some of us don't even know that we're in trouble, not unless someone else voice it out and be like, come to think of it. You see, that is why men are dying with suicide. Why? Because they don't even know what is happening to them. And this is because the very institutions that we are supposed to be relying on, they are very institutions that are perpetuating the stigmas and misconceptions that we are very fighting. And I'll just let it there. I know it was very controversial, but I feel like this is something that people out there and even the viewers are watching. They felt at some point, even pastors and everything, they felt at some point that the church has let them down. But we also know the church is the Christ and all that. That's a conversation for another day.
Khalifa, if I can just add a rider, 1 minute only of a rider.
Okay, because of time, yeah, just 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute.
Yes.
Three things have been mentioned here. Truth be told, there is there are areas that we've seen discrimination. when you get to church. But sometimes when you look at that from a church from one angle, it's very easy to think that the rest of the church is like that. While they are bad eggs, there are also good eggs somewhere that men can be able to tap from. I must say, like talking from my own perspective, the level of theological training that we are going through as clergy is so stratified in such a way that we have got basic skills in psychology, counseling, entrepreneurship, and many other areas that affect the man. And so I think one reason why the government decided that for any church to be licensed, a pastor needs to go through theological training was because basically that will be able to meet those needs, and especially for men. And especially when we stick into this conversation of men. Men, from the time I was growing up, you'd hear men, wazes, talking to their children and telling their children, be a man, don't cry. So you suppress your tears, you suppress your emotions because you want to show that you're a man. Even if you're hit so hard, slapped by a teacher or you want to show you're a man. That kind of a man, when he gets into family, finds it very difficult to express himself, to hug his wife, to show his wife some level of for lack of a better word, passion. Why? Because he has been conditioned to be a man. And so one assignment we have as a church, and I would actually say, is to be able now to draw these lines and bring into perspective what it means to really be a real man. When God created tears in a man, he didn't create them there as trophies. I believe he knew at one point a tear will be shed. And so it is important also to look at those perspectives. So I just thought it's good also to bring that into perspective in a nutshell. Thank you.
Very, very interesting conversation. I think if we had time, we will have expounded and explored more of it. But let's go to the next question, which is more of just how we take care of ourselves. And maybe Dr. Patrick and Dr. Sianyo, you can respond to this. How does physical health and exercise contribute to promoting mental well-being among men? And what are some practical tips for incorporating physical activity into the daily life? Maybe Dr. Kibaso, you can go first.
So thank you, Khalifa, for the question. So I'll start with half of my question will be based on the scientific aspect of it. Then I'll give a social connotation. So probably the easiest way to respond to that question is that exercise is distracting. It will distract you from when you are doing it. You cannot be worried about who did not pick your call when you are exercising. Your body, the brain, is focusing on making sure you don't lose balance and fall when you're doing those aerobics. So there's a scientific concept of gated theory where the brain prioritizes pressure and balance rather than dull pain and emotional pain. So the first benefit of exercise in mental health is that it causes distraction from the problem. It's just like it defers the problem. Then the next effect of exercise on and as regard to mental health is that once you exercise, exercise is usually a goal directed activity. It is a goal you set. You want to lose 10 kilograms or you want to gain more muscle. So once you achieve those goals, there's some dopamine. You feel there's some reward. You by achieving goals, it's one of the ways of rewarding yourself by meeting those goals. Then 3 is that once you exercise and you look healthy, you lose weight, you cut weight, you look more muscular as men. Once you are healthy, you have the stamina, you have the energy to perform other duties, to go to work, to go to school if you're a student like me. So that exercise increases the drive, energetic drive to achieve other things that you want to do. And when you look good, it also improves on your self-esteem. You feel more confident around people. You feel more, when people tell you look good, you look fit, that boosts your perspective around the world. So that is then probably another more scientific aspect is that when you exercise, you increase your cardiovascular performance. It means that even your brain is supplied with more blood, you are able to reason more, and you are able to get, the brain is empowered more to deal with issues and solve problems. So perhaps that would be the scientific basis for. But then maybe the social aspect is that when you usually don't go to a private isolation room, it's not like it's COVID every day where you are gymming alone. You gym with friends, you go to hikes with friends. So that exercise can be a social activity, and you can bond with friends around goals of exercise. You can see how other people are doing the exercise regimes, and in the gym, you can probably have a gym where you can meet other men and share your issues and come up with manly solutions. I think that's my aspect on exercise, both the scientific part and the social part. But before I go, maybe I will give half a cent on the prior question. Probably what we can say is that even in the Bible, in the Beatitudes, they say, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." So I think probably the audience should appreciate that mental health is like, it's illness in mental health is like malaria, and we need if someone feels like they need help, they can actually go to a reverend, or they can actually go to a hospital. And because that the treatment, it's like we assume that you're only allowed to come to hospital and ask for treatment for diabetes, for hypertension, for a fracture of a leg. If you feel low, sometimes when you feel low, you can actually speak to a doctor. There are medication for it or not, and you can actually get even help and get better faster than trying to go around it, because you're afraid that the only problem maybe is that our insurances are not catching up to this understanding that mental health is health as in the traditional way. Thank you so much, Khalif.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Patrick, a few
To
cents on
respond
that?
to that, all right, to respond to the issue of physical exercise with regards to mental health, what Daktari was saying is generally self-care. So by the time you're doing these exercises, your body is going to feel a bit tired. Then you'll get adequate sleep, which in turn will improve on your mental wellness. You will use a lot of energy, which will your body will ask you for food. Then you take a well-balanced diet, in turn taking care of your mental wellness. So something that maybe Daktari has not mentioned, when you're involving yourself in exercise, physical exercise, one thing is key. Let's avoid mood-altering chemicals, because it will be counterproductive. Because you're trying to have that happy feeling, then you introduce something that is going to depress your system. What are you doing? You're just impacting negatively on your mental wellness. And alcohol is also included in this category. So in simple words, physical exercise or physical health, let's ensure as men, we get adequate sleep. Between 6 and 9 hours of sleep, that's enough for us to remain afloat. Taking a well-balanced diet, again, it's very key. Tusikwe watu wa kuorder KFC all through, or the fast food, because health, in terms of your physical health, itakuletea madhara. For example, unaweza anza kupata obesity, then once you're obese, what happens? You start looking down on yourself. That is already impacting on your mental wellness. So as men, I will encourage us to just have this good diet, adequate sleep, avoiding substances that will compromise on our health, and just bond with nature. I think it's called mindfulness, being mindful of what is around you. Still, physical environment. So I think Khalifa and Daktari has put it well from a scientific point of view. With me, I'm bringing it as a package. Let us embrace self-care as men. Tusijiachilie tu.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. I think you brought something very important. Just taking care of our physical state. I think that has a very, very direct impact on our emotional, psychological, spiritual aspect of our lives. So thank you so much, Patrick, and also thank you, Dr. Siani, for that. The next question I'm going to pose to Reverend Alfred and to Ramsky. How can we engage men from diverse cultural backgrounds in mental health conversations, taking into account the intersectionality of their identities and experiences? I hope you've been able to get the question, Dr. Alfred and Ramsky.
Yes, loud and clear. Beautiful question there. And even as I respond, I must load the comments I've gotten about exercise. I must say, by the way, clergy here do a lot of gym here. We train a lot, so we've seen the benefits of this. So as they are talking, I'm feeling like after this session, I may hit the gym again so that we can catch up. But anyway, a quick one. Talking about how we can engage men from diverse cultural backgrounds in mental health conversation. One of the things that we've done as a church is to be able to support. We have several things we are doing. One is to support the mental health needs of these men. Now, we have put into consideration the fact that we are dealing with men with different contexts. Some of these men are unemployed, others are retired and are retired, and while others have retired well, there are those also who have retired in a way that have gotten them worried. So we get into spaces where these people come to church and we see these needs, because when they come to spaces and we are able to identify them, one of the areas that we are able to identify most is the fact that we see disconnection. These kind of men are disconnected from their friends because they feel like stigmatized. And as one person here rightly put it, it's very easy to see discrimination even in church at times. That happens, and is the truth. So we've provided forums where we support these men, where they can be vulnerable to one another. And we have actually created opportunities for these men to gather together. So in supporting the mental health needs, one of the things that we have done also is to provide resources to enable these groups of people to be able to acquire information in regard to their situation. For instance, within our area, we actually do men's mentorship, especially when it comes to different age groups. We have provided opportunities for men to be accountable to one another, and we are currently using a manual called Man Enough to be able to allow men to be vulnerable. And I think I liked the Kinyozi illustration, because truth be told, men have become very ensconced within themselves. They don't want to share things. For a man to break and to be vulnerable, it takes quite some work to do. And that's what we've discovered as pastors. So what we do is that we create environment for them to be vulnerable, accountable, and provide resources, either through books. Nowadays we have media that can help to actually bring out critical discussions that affect their norms, their identities, their relations. As some may be struggling in their marriages and all that. So we provide resources. So in supporting their mental health needs, we provide resources. Another strength that we do, another thing that we do, is to ensure that we partner with different institutions, both government institutions and also church institutions. As a cathedral, we do not just we do not just think church. No, but we are also well aware that God has endowed different institutions with beautiful information and knowledge that can help these men lead quality lives. So we could allow somebody to come and speak. Like now we're discussing mental health. Maybe one of these fine days we we will be inviting one of you, Khalifa, to come and speak on this, maybe to our men. I mean, to be able to get a wider perspectives, or Dr. Kibaso, or any one of us, just to be able to get a wider perspective of what mental health actually is all about. And that we do very well. So issues of supporting these people and not making them feel isolated, providing resources for them, whether in writing and whether in writing or whether in through seminars, or also collaborating with partners that would help us to do this. That has helped us a lot. Now, I would want to say this. This thing has been escalated into schools. We have escalated this discussion into schools, and especially when you go into the boys' schools, you realize that there is that gap that is there sometimes between the father and the son. You meet, you meet, or you get what I may call a strange rendition of what a man is supposed to be that a boy gets to know. So as a team, we try as much as possible to get into these institutions and try and just to be able to let them know what it is to be a man. Now, it is important also to mention. Let me just
maybe 1 more minute.
Two more things that we do that also help in this. Developing male-friendly values, customs, priorities, approaching men and inquiring how they like the best. Some of the things they watch on TV. One of the things we did, and I can be very open in this forum, was also we've noticed that men like football. So the Premier League guys like gathering and discussing football. So that is one of the areas that also we have used to try and bring people together to help them be vulnerable. What am I saying? What I'm saying is resources, building partnerships with people that are able to be a blessing to these men, creating forums where men can be vulnerable and pour out their heart. Is never an easy thing, but you create a forum for them is something that actually we have thrived on. And I must say the results have been so amazing. So if there are some of those areas that I can mention that we've been able to do by the grace of God, are those for men, and we have seen results. Let me not talk too much about that. Let me allow my colleague also to talk about the same. We can also hear his perspective. But thank you, Khalifa.
Oh, thank you, Rev. Thank you, Rev, for that. Ramsky, maybe do you have something on that?
Oh, yeah, I think because of time, I'm just going to, because Pastor has, addressed actually everything, I'll just focus on one, and that is men need to be held accountable for their behavior and decisions as well. It is very easy to say what needs to be done and all that. It's like, Daktari, if I come to you and you tell me I have malaria, you can only diagnose and give me medication. But when I go home, when it comes to taking medication, making sure I eat, that's the whole thing about my responsibility. We need to come down to having accountable friends, because you are what you keep. And most of these things that we see nowadays, men are struggling. It's not even because of women. It's because of men themselves. They're like, acha umama, acha, So we also need to be held accountable and be told the truth, instead of, being victim. And I'm not dismissing the struggles that we go through, but sometimes we need to be kept in check. And that's where the roles of mentors come in, role models and everything. I have different kind of friends. For example, I have accountability friends where I commit to you, this is what I'm going to do. And this friend has a responsibility to follow up, and vice versa. And if I don't, there's a quote unquote a punishment. So men, you find that. And we also need to talk about the idea where the root of everything. And one of those roots, you find that men walk out of their kids and family at a very young age or even some don't acknowledge the responsibility that they are supposed to take care of family. And this is where everything starts. And every psychologist here knows where, when you talk about attachment disorders and everything, it all stems where from back. So we need to address these issues from where they start. Men need to be held accountable. We need to be held accountable for our behavior and everything. And until we resolve that, then we can go out there and say, okay, now we've done our part. Now this is what we need to be done. Until then, 20 years from now, we'll be having the same conversation. So for me, and lastly, before I forget, we also need to include women in this conversation. What do I mean by that? When Kenya, there was a prevalence of gender-based violence perpetuated towards women, men were encouraged to speak against this. And you find that most of the time men struggle with manhood after meeting a woman. You find that this man has to do this has to do this, they have to do this. But you find that because of this woman, the self-esteem of a man like there's just a lot. And of course that talks about the underlying issues that men is dealing with. But after this encounter, you find that sometimes it's a trigger. Maybe they were work in progress, but now this one, they start inflating self-doubt and a lot of questions. So we also need to include women in this conversation and tell them to provide that environment that men can come out also, because we cannot just be talking about men. The world is too big just for men. We also interact with women, and that interaction also plays a very, very major role in our mental health. So I'll just leave it at there.
Thank you so much, Ramsky, for that. I think you've mentioned something very important, especially when we grow up. I think we all have different attachment styles and what we believe in. And I think there's a way that our minds get structured and we believe in some certain things about ourselves. So I feel like that's very important, but also it's a topic that we can explore more. Yeah, because there's so many issues that comes along with attachment styles, things like emotional trauma and also adverse childhood trauma that also Patrick can agree on that, having dealt with kids. This next question, I'm going to pose it to every single person in this panel, and in no particular order, anyone can answer it. So how can men cultivate a strong support network and foster meaningful connections with other men, family, and friends to enhance their mental well-being? And what role can community-based initiatives play in this process? So I would want Dr. Kebaso maybe to start this off.
Yes, thank you, Khalifa. So maybe so that in acknowledgement of Reverend Apella, I read somewhere in the Bible that they say, as iron sharpens iron, so does man sharpen another man. So I think that question highlights the role of community approaches, because the first way to cure is diagnosis. There are people who probably need mental health support and they are not even aware. They just think maybe it's because of they are going through it's a temporary thing. So first of all, it's no, because if I break a leg, everyone knows that I need to go to hospital and get it fixed. The community diagnosis is present, it's well defined, everyone knows about it. But usually mental health, even me, if I did not go to medical school, I probably would not have known as much about mental health as I know now. And so not everyone, we don't need all of us to go to medical school for us to know. So I think the first thing is to create community awareness about first the definition of mental health, and when we know that we need help. Even after going to medical school, still right now, if up to recently, if I wanted to check into a psychologist office, I probably did not know where they were. So community approaches are creating awareness about mental health first. We are here and we are well educated. That's why we assume that it's a standard that everyone knows about mental health. But there are communities, I can guarantee you, there are communities that do not have that privilege, the privilege of knowledge. As so they say in Hosea, the book of Hosea, that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So the first step in community is creating awareness about the definition of when do we need, like if someone is taking alcohol as a social, when do we cross the line? When do we need help? So that's one. So creating awareness. Then to creating awareness on where to get help. First, Reverend has said that there are activities that are guided in the church on how they can integrate mental health systems, so that the patients do not feel like they're going to hospital per se, but they can get help at the church level. So that's a brilliant, that's a community-based approach, but you can extend it to other social events that are not probably. So that I feel like creating awareness there's a big gap, and probably one of the, like, this webinar is a good place to start. We can integrate it in social media, in Instagram, knowing that it's okay not to be okay. And in fact, probably the 90% of all the problems that are in mental health can be actually treated. Some can even be cured completely. So that's the first thing, creating awareness of mental health issues and platforms. I have to confess, Mr. Khalifa, that even to this day, if I go back to my home county, I do not know where I can link my brother, for example, to a clinical psychologist. Imagine. So I think maybe we can have like well-defined popular platforms where people can get access, even for referral, not even just for counseling, even referral for other people, as compared to probably if I wanted my brother to have an X-ray done. That is so that's probably. And then the last part of your question before I let it go is that if they, as I've said about iron sharpening another, if we are in a community where people do not appreciate the role of mental health support, we are going to be shy of access, of asking for help, because even when you come, even as I work in hospital, usually most patients are not brought alone. They don't walk in alone. They're brought in by their wives, their brothers, their friends. But you see, if I am depressed, I will not allow my people around me to bring me, because that is a sign of weakness. So if we can be able, by doing the first two things that I've said, someone can tell you, doc, don't you think you need to, maybe you have lost a lot of patients, neurosurgery is a rough science, maybe the outcomes are not very good, do you need some help? Do you think we can go and see Mr. Khalifa? It does not have to be serious. So that social support, we can surround ourselves with friends that, if every friend of ours knows that even them, next time they can be unwell, and we can support them. So once you build that support system, it will be easier for everyone. It's like herd immunity. Once everyone knows that there's mental health issues, anyone can get unwell. But maybe before I go, as an anatomist, I should say that everyone in this platform right now who's attending this webinar, 100% can get a mental health problem, including probably Reverend, if I dare say. The difference is the threshold. The threshold is what is different. I remember, maybe let me say, Reverend, just to quote that even Jesus, when he went to the mountain just before he was crucified, and he was crying to God and saying, "Doc, Father, can we get this cup of suffering?" If you know what I mean. That one we can argue at another platform. But I feel we need to know that everyone can get, even the president, everyone. I remember even the current president broke down in tears after winning the first election. So it means it must have been a very stressful for everyone in the home and everything. So it's just the threshold is different. And when one of us reaches the threshold, the rest of us, they can take the sick role, and then the rest of us support them, so that even us, when our time will come, we will get supported. I think those will be my 2 cents.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, Reverend, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Dr. has really outlined that very well. He has really brought up the aspect of how men can really have a support network to foster meaningful connections. And one of the things he's talked about, men, iron sharpening iron. When he mentioned that, it just hit me that an old man just held my hand some time back. And you know what he told me? He told me that communication is to a man what blood is to the body. That has never left my mind. When he mentioned that, he helped me actually gather these facts that when you're able to communicate as a man, what it helps you to do is to be able to actually like empty or open up the weight that you're carrying. Let me just bring in a few thoughts about this. One of the areas that most men struggle with is on the area of acknowledging where you are at mentally, emotionally. Vulnerability in terms of in men's perspective is a very hidden topic. People don't talk about the struggles they have, the weaknesses they have. We suppress them, And so for me, one of the things that actually comes to mind when I'm thinking about how men can cultivate a strong supportive network, first of all, is to be able to create an aura of openness, and creating an area where an avenue where you can be able to share with others, not just from a surface level, but you're able to be vulnerable and speak when you need help and get people you can trust. Let me just say within this forum that one of the greatest challenges we face, especially within our time today, is on trust issues, and that is why most men don't share their things, because there's been a lot of betrayal. Betrayal seems to be like quote unquote part of the menu. You know, I fear to share this with Patrick. I fear to share my issues with Patrick, because when I know if I share it with Patrick, maybe Patrick will talk to Daktari or to so and so, and all these things come out in public, and I get embarrassed. The ego in me gets affected. So that's why men have become very enclosed. But we would encourage, or I would encourage men to find a forum where they can talk about their matters. One thing that we have succeeded to do also is to provide a group within the cathedral that meets, that is called the Alcoholics Anonymous. These are people who are struggling with issues of addiction. They fear to share them out. So we have given them a forum to actually meet among themselves and just open up and share. And that way, besides the prayers that we make for them and the mentoring that we offer them, that has opened up a forum where for them to be able to share their struggles, and also get one amongst them who has overcome and been able also to share some of the things that he's been facing and how he has overcome that kind of a challenge. So for me, the ability of a man to invest in connection with others, enhancing that communal aspect, for me, that is very paramount. Maybe just to wrap up what I'm saying, so that I can also allow my colleagues here to share their thoughts. If meeting with people formally becomes a challenge, then there are activities like games, there are activities like hikes, activities like mountaineering, swimming, that men can be engaged in. The other day I met one man in church, and he tells me one of the things that helps, that actually has made him attend a particular church in this city, let me not mention it, is because these guys have got projects, and as men they gather together and they do these things. They build, they participate in buildings and all these things, and in the course of doing that, they're able to converse with their friends and discuss meaningful activities and meaningful things that would affect them. And so for me, it's that communication aspect is important. Allow me just to take you back to the very good old days that I learned in history. There used to be age groups, age sets, rites of passage, and during this rites of passage, there were particular groups that were actually brought in to mentor these young men to be either hunters or to be providers, or how to live in their homes. If that would be inculcated within our context today, then we'll be able to bring up men who are actually very solid and are not afraid to share and to talk about their issues. Allow me just to allow my colleagues here to share much more. There's a lot we can talk about, but it's good to hear all this.
Definitely. I mean, those are very good ideas. You can imagine how big this topic is, and we need even more time. Right? I feel like we're leaving out so many crucial things that we want to share out. But thank you so much, Reverend Alfred, for expressing that. And you've really pointed out an important thing, which is more of the support groups, within treatment and management. So thank you for mentioning that. So the next person, maybe Patrick. Can you give us
Okay.
a few cents
Thank
on that?
you, Doc and Rev. I want to respond to that with one statement so that I allow Ramsky to also give his perspective. To create a strong support, the question that we ask ourselves, what is your network? And we all know that our network equals our net worth. So by the time you're having these networks, are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable to these men around you? By the time you're being vulnerable around you, then we'll have a ripple effect, because if now the five of us hold one another accountable, then we have five more join in. So by the time we are having this chain, there's a chain reaction, and we'll have a very well adjusted society that men are able to talk about their issues, and men are able to hold one another accountable. And as Ramsky said earlier on, we can't have this conversation minus the ladies. Tutakuwa tunajidanganya that as men we can have this conversation and things will be okay. Will be okay at a certain degree, but minus the ladies, then things are just going to go south. So thank you very much. Let us remember our net worth equals our networks. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. That's how important our networks are and how worthy they are. So thank you so much. Ramsky,
Yes.
would you give us a few of that?
Okay. I'll just give few because again of time. Number one, we need influential figures, people that people look up to come out and talk about these things, because is someone, quote unquote, a celebrity coming out and talking about their struggle with mental health and their success in overcoming me, it encourages me to come out and share more. And number two, and this is very important, and I'm glad Khalifa is here, and anyone, Daktari, who is here, is that we need to rebrand psychologists in a manner that they are respectable in this society, where they are held. There's still perception. There's still perception.
Sorry. Ramsky, we lost you just for less than a minute. Maybe can you just go back to the rebranding the psychologist?
Okay. There's a need for psychologists to be branded and to be held in high regard as any other practitioners in the medical field, because there's still this narrative that is being perpetrated around. Actually, a friend of mine told me when I was visiting my therapist, and he said, seeing a therapist is like just paying someone to be your friend. And that gets to tell you the psychology that people have towards psychology. And I don't even know why you don't identify yourself as doctors, because I feel like that title is, and you need to embrace that. I don't know why. Maybe Khalifa, you can tell me why you guys don't like to identify with that. And then another thing, and this is the one that I feel like it is very, very important. We need to be authentic. We need to know that what works for me will not work for the other. We also need to be culturally aware. You see, we as Africans, like Mchungaji has said, back then we used to have our own system in place. You see, our own system in place. Yes, we can borrow knowledge from the Western and everything, but doing on our own that have been proven to be successful. Like, we used to be connected to those age groups, age sets, and we linked to mentors, wazee wa vijiji, and all that. It used to work. But nowadays, we've narrowed it to a level that it has to be done a certain way. And this is the only way. You see? So we need influential people to come out and talk more about
I think we lost you a little bit there, Ramsky. We lost you a little bit.
Okay. What I'm saying is I'm summarizing basically Kenya nilikuwa nimesema, and that is we need influential people in this society, male figures to come and talk about it. Emphasize well enough about. I can see I'm coming off and on.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Let me just conclude then. My parting shot is that accountability. And Halifa, go and be an advocate for the title of the doctors.
Oh, thank you, Ramsky, for that. I mean, for you to get the doctor title, of course, if you haven't done medicine, Dr. Kibaso can tell you that you'll have to do your doctorate. Yeah, and it's okay. I think at the end of the day, it's the quality of work that we give. Some people will respect it, some others will not respect it. But at the end of the day, people will always have an opinion. So what I normally say, at least impact one in every 10. So if a person is misinformed about a particular thing, especially therapy, which I feel like for so long people have been misinformed about it, I think our work is to get information out there so that people can actually get what therapy is. They can visit Chiromo Hospital Group. Also, we can educate them a little bit, yeah, because we are fully equipped and we have the personnel. So I mean, some patients will call you doctor, but at the end of the day, what is the impact you're making in their lives? And I think thank you so much for them. Probably that's where the respect also comes from. But I feel like everyone has already given a comment on that. There's a question in the chat box. Not really, it's actually a question from Mili Njuguna. She said that she's asking, how does the quality of friends a man keeps impact their mental health? So, I mean, anyone can, maybe Dr. Kibasu, what do you feel about that?
For starters, when I read that question, the first thing is that it modifies the friends are what we have been talking about, referred to as the society. So it modifies the expectation. If your friends expect you to be successful in business, and they probably give you tools and they introduce you to people who can help your business, so that they will boost your self-esteem. When you have success, they host parties for you. Because I remember when I got into neurosurgery, my friends threw me a party. See, so they boost yourself. Those small wins, that the ones I was speaking about. If your friends, they are the ones that give you pressure. They're the ones that they are out competing you when you confide in them, as Reverend was saying, and then they leak that information. So I think perhaps we should, while we are doing our SWOT analysis, part of the strengths we have is the friends that we have. We can modify, we can be self-selective of the friends that we trust and confide in, because they can make you feel better. They can boost you. They'll be the first level of treatment for your mental health. Then again, they're the ones that can catch when you are down. They're the ones who will notice, Dr. Siano, Dr. Kebaso, today you are not doing well. Recently you have been low, you have been withdrawing. Is everything okay? Is your business okay? So I feel like your friend, they say, tell me your friends and I will tell you who you are. So your friends can improve your health-seeking behavior. They can even they can be like preventive medicine for your mental health. I think that's how they.
Oh, thank you for that. Patrick, do you want to answer that question in a different way?
Yeah, let me bring it maybe on Ramsky's area of expertise. So the quality of your friends will impact your mental health in this way. If you share your issues with person X, and this person is not embracing confidentiality, trust you me, you're just sharing this with someone from Al Jazeera. So the next minute, your issue will be out there, which will negatively impact on your mental wellness. So when we are looking at the quality of our friends, let us know exactly what we are sharing with who. You don't just share everything and anything with everyone. But unless you want to be a journalist through your story, then that is the risk that you might fall into if you don't really sift the friends you have and what you share with them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. And maybe I will just want to ask um, um, Ramsky this question. Yeah, Ramsky, please. How would you define toxic masculinity, and how can we be able to come out of that as men if there's something that exists like that?
Whoa, that's one of those questions that it's easy to say it's just relative. To me, toxic masculinity, okay, I'm trying to figure out a wording that I can use that, not to define the word by its word itself. So maybe someone can take over while I try to process my wording because you caught me off guard.
Okay, maybe Reverend.
Thanks, Khalifa. When you talk about toxic masculinity, I'm thinking about a misrepresentation of what we have actually defined as what masculinity is all about. They're based on these roles and expectations. I think that's what I'm thinking about. And so I think for me, for somebody to get a representation of what masculinity is all about, we really need to ask ourselves the question of upbringing. What was the environment that this person was brought up under? Like, for instance, now Millie Juguna has asked, how does the quality of friends a man keep impact their mental health? When we talk about toxic masculinity, we are looking at these negative aspects that a man has actually gathered from other people and is trying to promulgate these aspects as a norm, as a norm, and that is true. Somebody once said this, that there are four kinds of friends: those who multiply you, add to you, divide you, and subtract you. And when you talk about toxic masculinity, we are looking at the aspect that has negatively impacted men to such an extent that, let me just give an example. Somebody can, for instance, as a man, begin to perceive that, for example, violence against women is a norm, is a way to show that you're a man, or and many other vices within the society that brings that. And so for me, what I would actually say is that the reality of this is very evident among our people. We cannot deny the fact that we are seeing it even on the road. As you drive, you see you see the way people even behave, and you can be able to tell the mindset of this guy in terms of showing that he's a man is totally out of place. And so if I go to write Khalifa, I think that's what you would mean with the toxic masculinity, because you brought it up, and I really had to broke it up to really as Ramsey actually recovers. But that's what I'm thinking about. But the truth of the matter is that it is real, it is true. And for me, it has stemmed up from upbringing and influence of friends. One of us has quoted Proverbs 27:17 that says, "Iron sharpens iron." So in the same way, the opposite is true. If you interact with negative people who influence you in the negative, then the results will still be toxic. And so I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes.
I don't know if I've been able to hit the point right home. Maybe
Absolutely.
you could actually give your comments on the same.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that comment, and I think it hit home. I would want maybe to restructure it in some kind of way that this perception that people will always have on you as a man and the things that you're supposed to be doing as a man. So it's more of some sort of you're conditioned to believe that these are the things that I'm supposed to be doing as a man and engaging, so that you keep the status that you are in the right kind of direction as a man, and you're doing it what the society is expecting you to do as a man. Maybe we're going also to look into the conventional perspective of masculinity, because I think there's a way that we've been conditioned and structured to perform or to behave as men. For example, maybe I'll ask this doctor to Dr. Kibasu, probably how does he feel about going for a manicure or a pedicure as a man? Is it something that he can do as a way of just taking care of himself because he wants to, he's taking some day off from work and he feels like it's some sort of self-care? Or is it going to create a different perspective outside there? As why would you engage in such a thing? You're a man. Would you consider that kind of controversy more of like a toxic masculinity kind of thing? And how can you be able to promote men to actually do things that sometimes I know we've outlined activities that we need to do as men, but can we also engage in things that are not yet defined as these are things that are supposed to be done by women, or these are things that are supposed to be done as men? How can we create that kind of opportunity for us, Dr. Raymond?
So first, I'll begin by sharing that I think the term, if I understand toxic masculinity well, is that the how I feel for it to be toxic, it means that we assume positions of leadership and manhood at the expense of others. That's for it to be, I think, the threshold for me for toxicity. For example, I'm the man of the house. My wife cannot go and work. She has to stay home and cook for me when I come back. Even if she has a job, she has to resign. So that I feel like, I cannot allow my wife to pursue further studies because I'm the man. I'm the one who's so that scarcity. There's a scarcity mindset that I feel is attached to toxic masculinity. However, that is the extreme, but there are more. There are 50 shades of gray in between. There's this, as you have highlighted, like I cannot go for a massage, for a pedicure or a manicure. So I'll speak from where I sit. Usually, I think maybe because of how we were raised and and what we enjoyed doing, you find that probably my free time I like playing games as compared to perhaps manicure. But probably the girls who are raised probably will enjoy manicure as something that they enjoy, not because they're women, but because they enjoyed it in childhood, so they extended it later. But now maybe what you probably were aiming at finding out is that this, I feel like there's some scarcity in people's mindsets, in that roles. We had agreed when we were starting that masculinity is a social construct that can be defined and is redefined. So perhaps if we can redefine, we should just accept that as in 2100, in the year 2100, perhaps masculinity will be who has more Bitcoin rather than who has more land. Probably land will not be important because people love. So I feel like, so that definition, the definition is what. So I feel like as we continue as society, we can redefine what we agree on as masculine, and perhaps, so maybe a solution to those who are labeled as toxic is that once we redefine the masculinity, and then we make that new definition acceptable, even them while trying to be masculine. Probably in 2100, the year 2100, going to pedicure will be the actual masculine thing, and not going to pedicure will be a sign of weakness. So it's a social construct. But in the interim, it's just people should just allow that perhaps other people might have opinions that are different from themselves, and before they ban everyone else and shoot everyone else who has a different opinion, they maybe probably will need to try it out and reason it out before then. Once it's acceptable, then it can be added into the definition.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I feel like all of you have highlighted the most important things that we needed to discuss today. Unfortunately, because of time, we might end the conversation there. But also a question to you, and maybe if you get some time, you can be able to reflect on it as an individual, as a man, as a dad. How, like many African cultures, have traditional rites of passage for boys transitioning into manhood. How can these rights be adapted to include conversations around mental health and emotional well-being? So I'll repeat the question. Many African cultures have traditional rites of passage for boys transitioning into manhood. How can these rights be adopted to include conversations around mental health and emotional well-being? So maybe that's a question you can be able to just reflect on um, in your own time. But I would want to incredibly say that this was a good conversation, and I see some comments, like people saying good perspective, Mr. Ramsky. I agree, creating a safe space, embracing self-care. So I feel like people are actually appreciating this conversation, and I really want to thank every single one of you coming on board today. Maybe a parting shot for everyone, and then we close the conversation. Rev, you can start, then Dr. You can follow.
All right. Thank you very much. My parting shot will just go back to where we started from. For me, God is a God of purpose, and He created everything with a purpose. And so when you don't understand purpose, abuse can come in. My parting shot is this: God's purpose is the key to your fulfillment. Find it, do that sort of analysis, pray about it, connect with Him, and He will guide you to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rev. Dr.
My parting shot will be that everyone, I think that's the emphasis. It should be on banners and posters. Everyone can be unwell, and mental health illness or a point of mental health weakness is like just like a flu or malaria. You trust us. You come to hospital when you have malaria, or you seek help. If you feel like you need help, there's nothing wrong. Seek help from your local community, from your local church, from your local hospital. You can be referred to a person who can help. Just remember that even doctors who treat patients get unwell, they get malaria, they also get mental health issues, and they get treated and go back to work. That's my parting shot.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Patrick?
My parting shot, it is okay for us men not to be okay. And as our tag as Chiromo Hospital to Funguke, let's just open up and talk about our issues as men. There is help out here. So don't die alone. Just speak it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I can't see him.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, all right. Yes, let's say something, Ramsky.
My parting shot is basically what everyone has said. And on a lighter note, just to address the previous thing as I leave, the question you had asked, Daktari. Men, we are different from women. We are all in for being things that we are not supposed. We can only do like something like that.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but we are missing you at some point, so I think there's a
Yeah.
technical hitch at the end.
What I'm saying is that we also need to acknowledge that we are different. We don't need to go to salons and do manicure for us to be seen as,
For us to be seen as non-toxic.
We missed him again.
I don't know what is happening. I keep coming on and off. So yeah, we don't need to do these things. There are things that
He seems to be breaking.
Yeah.
There are things that women have privilege to do.
Okay.
Let me just leave it at there.
Ramsky, I will definitely give you a call so that I can also understand what you wanted to communicate. But thank you so much, everyone, for this conversation. I will say that I had lots of fun. It's just that time was quite limiting. But I want to encourage everyone who listened that it's okay. You can reach out to anyone. Personally, maybe they can reach to you guys through your social media pages, and if they want to connect with you also, I think it's also very important because I know maybe that would be a question that will come up. But thank you so much, guys. On the screen is a toll-free number that is very active 24/7. And don't hesitate, call it, disseminate it within your friends groups, within your chamas. It's very, very important because someone out there could be crying out for help, but at that moment, there's no way where they feel like they can get someone who could understand them. So that number is active 24/7. And I would want to thank you everyone for tuning in today. And Mantrip 2023 was a success. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely, lovely day. God bless you.
Thank you.